Welcome back, everyone. The Senate has now summoned intelligence chiefs to investigate allegations made by the United States Congressman Perry Court that the United States Agency for International Development has been funding terrorist organizations, including Boko Haram. The House of Reps has also set up an ad hoc committee to investigate these allegations made by U.S. Congressman Scott Perry that the United States Agency for International Development is involved in funding Boko Haram and other terrorist organizations in Nigeria. The 15-member committee chaired by Victor Obuzo has also been tasked with probing the activities of non-governmental organizations operating in Nigeria, including their identities, sources of funding, and expenditure. That whole committee has been directed to report back to the House within 2 weeks for further legislative action. Let's get some insights into this developing story. Joining me tonight from Abuja studio is Engineer Nuruddin Hamayero, retired naval officer, policy analyst, and security consultant. Good evening to you, Engineer Nuruddin. Thank you very much for joining us on Politics Tonight.
Good evening, Olajumoke. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. The U.S. ambassador to Nigeria, Richard Mills, has now dismissed allegations that the U.S. Agency for International Development funds Boko Haram or other terrorist organizations. But the Senate has summoned the heads of intelligence institutions in the country. What was your first reaction to this recent development?
Yeah, his dismissal at this early stage is unwelcome. And Nigerians need to understand, more so Scott Perry is not a Nigerian. Scott Perry is not a black man from any part of the African countries. Scott Perry is a politician and also a Republican who happens to be in the same party with the current president. And also, Scott Perry has no any form of ties with Nigeria. So just like as the saying goes, there is no smoke without fire. So I think the ambassador has no basis whatsoever to dismiss the allegation by an American on the alleged sponsorship of terrorism by USAID. However, Olajumoke, having said that, we need to look at historically USAID as an organization. The act that establishes them even in America, both the one that is openly known to many because they have presence in over 100 countries in the world. But be rest assured that America is a world superpower, and their presence in Nigeria have outlined a lot of interventions which they want to come into, from health sector down to education, to economic and growth, to global health and whatnot. So a lot of these things ordinarily are for good. And if you take a look at the other side, which many doesn't know, but it is important at this stage because of what is happening, Nigerians should get to know much. There has been a power play even at the global stage between America and the Russian Federation, and before now America and USSR. So one of the establishment of the USAID in the Kennedy era, John F. Kennedy era, was also to bring about influence, of the American government in other countries of strategic interest to counter the influence of the USSR, which is at global stage. We have little, or nothing to even contribute to that. However, coming down to our country, which is our domestic issue, and we should be looking at it critically, this allegation is strong, more so with the damages we have seen, meted out on the states, that were ravaged by the activities of Boko Haram. And for how many years now? Over 15 years. Absolutely. So many people have died, businesses have been shattered, economic activities have gone down, so many have been displaced. Numerous to mention, you can't even quantify.
Absolutely.
So if somebody,
so now that the House of Reps,
63 years of presence.
So now that the House of Reps has set up an ad hoc committee to investigate these allegations, including the NGOs in the country, the House will be back in 2 weeks for further legislative action on this security national issue. You're a security consultant, so what do you think they should be focusing on? Where do they begin? When these intelligence chiefs appear before the Senate, what are the questions we should be asking?
before doing that, we should first of all look at our relationship with the United States. We have a lot to gain. At the same time, we have a lot to lose if this thing goes wrong. That means sincerity of purpose and sincerity in discharging, our duty with respect to this investigation to ascertain the actual, the allegation raised on these people, whether it is true or not, is important, and it should be made open. Because I want to tell you something. You said sponsorship of so many activities in Nigeria, one of which is very much critical to us is about our health. And I can tell you today, I made a rough estimate after my research, discussing with a lot of people in the health sector. Already, you said as at this month, and even coming down to March, they have stopped paying some of their staffs. That's one. Secondly, they have stopped extending, some of their development around, structures in a bid to expand their activities. And then three, they will begin to fold up, in their activities in the country. Now, what does that have to do with our health sector? For 63 years, we have been leveraging on the USAID aid in the health sector. First of all, I just want to talk about, forgetting the other six, because about 7 sectors in our economy, USAID have influence. Now, if you just look at the health sector, particularly in the angle of the HIV and AIDS, looking at our prevalence rate in our population of 1.3%, Jumoke, we have 1.9 million Nigerians today that are HIV patients. And they take free drugs as a result of USAID intervention. Now, if this allegation goes wrong and USAID fold up from Nigeria, these guys will begin to pay for their, let's even put it at 50%. If they will begin to pay for their medicine, and their monthly medicine based on my research is about 3 million naira without test. Yeah. And if you put it by the estimate of 1.9 million, this is about $1.7 billion on every, on the 1.9 million patients, or on 50% of them. And how have we empowered our, pharmaceutical industries to cater for this? So I really will implore that we should be very careful. We should be very sincere in this investigation.
All right.
Yes, like I said initially, there is no smoke without fire. Nigeria should do everything necessary. I like the tempo. The Senate President have spoken. The House of Representatives have spoken. The National Security Advisor is a man known with character and uncompromising. I'm sure he will be at the center of this. Right. That means caliber of people that will be assembled, to go into this investigation. We will be very comfortable with them, and I hope to see that happen. And if it kicks off, we Nigerians will have to be, kept abreast, while considering maintaining diplomatic ties with America, because we have a lot to gain and we have a lot to lose.
Right. So in other words, you agree that failure to investigate this claim could embolden criminal groups and exacerbate Nigeria's security challenges. Is that it?
Yes, because let me tell you, the Trump administration, as soon as he comes into power, guess what he has done to America? He introduced a department called Department of Government Efficiency. And he now, gave the leadership of this new department he has established. He has given it to a renowned business mogul, Elon Musk, who is known with one of his famous, development of Tesla. He gave him to lead that department. And you can see, if you go into research, how far Elon Musk have extended his hand in getting classified information in relevant, agencies, even within the American society. And he went ahead and said that his denial of his appointed people to
that's
access
America.
Yes.
That's America, and you would agree with me that American leaders will do everything. Can you hold on? American leaders will do everything to protect their own citizens. But is this a wake-up call for us as a country? And I'm asking this question because I was listening to a retired Commodore who says America will always do everything in the best interest of America. and that when it comes to espionage, sabotaging the interest of, you know, other nations, especially developing or underdeveloped countries, countries like America, Germany, and Russia will always do everything in the best interest of their countries. How important is it that we put our house in order?
And it is about putting our house in order that I'm making reference to that, Jumoke, because have we really put our house in order? How can you remain with a country's aid for 63 years? For God's sake, we have been with this USAID for the past 63 years. USAID was established in 1961, November. Nigeria got her independence in October 1960. So it's just unreasonable, and today is hitting on every one of us. So as you said, we have to, it is actually, they will do whatever necessary, you know, to close out the likelihood of establishing the sponsorship of Boko Haram or whatever terrorism activities that is endangering Nigeria, just to maintain their ties with Nigeria. But it beholds on us as a country. And that is why I'm saying credible people should come forward for this investigation, so that when it is ascertained and it is proven beyond reasonable doubt that USAID has done this thing, because one of the reasons Perry Scott mentioned is that the USAID in Pakistan has voted $136 million to go into building destroyed public schools. At the end, there is no any evidence of their presence in doing that. And if that happened in Pakistan, let's look at their funding in Nigeria and what do they have to show as evidence. So it's left now for those that will investigate to come up with this thing. But again, look back and look at the country. What have we been doing for 63 years? We don't have good pharmaceutical companies that today will close that gap, that humanitarian gap, that if you said fold up today from Nigeria, they will close the gap. Are we prepared? No. How many people can afford what I just told you, about 3 million naira for their HIV medicine if you said leaves Nigeria? So
I hear you, Engineer
Nuruddin,
and we'll come back to that in a moment, because that's very important also. But you know, at the moment we're talking about foreign sponsors. But if at all this is true, how worried should we be about domestic subversive organizations, local collaborators? Because as far back as 2021, former Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, says that the federal government had succeeded in identifying and detaining high-profile individuals responsible for funding terrorist activities in the country. And if I could remember clearly, about 400 in number at that time, high-profile Nigerians strongly suspected to be financing terrorism. We do not know the outcome of that investigation to date.
And this goes down to our insincerity as a nation. If you are saying from 2021, about 400 Nigerians, notable Nigerians, found to be sponsoring, you know, this kind of activities, and yet nothing has been done to them. The matter has been swept away. Nigerians are not aware of anything happening. This comes down to us as a country that if care is not taken, we'll continue to go on this trajectory, and the future of the unborn generation will not be guaranteed. There will be nothing left for us in the country. And this is why we should be very careful. Yes, we should investigate to find out what USAID have been doing in Nigeria with respect to the allegation. If true, we have other avenues to remedy the damages they have done. For example, we can sue them in the International Criminal Court and claim damages of people they have killed, of businesses they have destroyed, of people they have displaced, of states they have ravaged. We can do all this in as a nation, and this will bring about diplomatic, you know, discussions between Nigeria and US to see how they can settle those damages and still continue with the relationship, knowing fully well that we now are abreast of what they are doing in our country. You know, it is on us to do that, and that is why sincerity is very, very essential. If you cannot demonstrate to a foreign ally that you care about your country, how then do you expect your foreign ally, you know, to do your job for you? I don't think you said we'll go to South Africa and do this. I don't think you said we'll go to Rwanda and do this.
Apart from sincerity of purpose, does this also demonstrate a lack of commitment by past administrations to ending Boko Haram in Nigeria? If till date, the former AGF assertively says there are high-profile individuals financing Boko Haram, but naming and shaming them would affect interrogation. And I wonder, how long shall we continue this way? Our soldiers die every day on the battlefield. Displacements of over 1 million citizens due to terrorism, but we keep protecting the names of these alleged saboteurs.
The Buhari administration, before he came into power, he promised Nigerians that all those that have stolen the country's, resources, he will name and shame them. But 8 years down the line, he left his office. There was nothing like, as such. Yes, a few ones were arrested. Some were taken to prison and later bailed. And today they are moving around with their own security, for escort, even as criminals yet celebrated. But again, if you look at, it's not just the Buhari administration. It's not just the last 8 years. You ask yourself, the current dispensation is 25 years today. The current political generation is 25 years, which is the fourth generation. And when the terrorism started in Nigeria, since early 2001, which is like 2 years after the first the president, which is President Olusegun Obasanjo, who came in 1999. It started about that time. So what happened? We have a lot of pointing fingers to some certain individuals at different states of the country that these are the sponsors of Boko Haram, these are the sponsors of bandit. Of recent Olajumoke, even the CBN governor that I just heard, there was a forfeiture in some of the monies alleged to have found in his own disposal, was accused of sponsoring terrorism. So when that happens, Nigerians would need to see, the sincerity in the government in bringing these people to book, because this will deter others from venturing into it. But in a situation where a criminal does this kind of thing, killed a lot, destroy businesses, and because he has money, he delays the justice process. After some time, he goes about with security escort and being celebrated. What do you expect? How then do you expect of organizations that have sinister motives not to come into the country and exploit, these avenues? Besides, we are one of the richest countries in terms of mineral resources. And these things are now scarce resources all over the world. For example, I give you lithium, which America is very much utilizing today, even with the person I mentioned, Elon Musk, because of his technology. We are taught in Africa, 10th in the world. Jumoke, we don't have a lithium processing ore in Nigeria, let alone to have, an industry that will produce, the finished product and market it to other African countries and other countries of the world. We don't have it. The same thing with other mineral resources. And these things are in billions of dollars, which is of strategic interest to other countries. And like I said, there is a global power play whenever there are, when you talk about mineral resources, which we cannot excuse ourselves.
All right, Engineer Nuruddin, let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll expand this conversation. But after the break, we'll take a documentary on Edo State Governor Monday Okpebholo's 100 days in office. The program continues on our YouTube and our other platforms. Please stay with us, everyone. All right, welcome back, everyone. Engineer Nuruddin Hamanyero is my guest tonight, retired naval officer, policy analyst, and security consultant. Engineer Nuruddin, thank you very much for staying with us on the program. But really, let's look at it this way. President Trump ending USAID funding, is this a blessing in disguise to Nigeria? Is this a wake-up call for us as a country to stand up and protect our sovereignty? And I'm asking because Africa and indeed Nigeria have always benefited by way of aid from the US and other global powers. The question is that what we should always be identified with? Are we not old and mature enough to sit on trade and investment table to discuss business instead of aid, which most times, come with hardline conditions?
Jumoke, I also call it a blessing in disguise. And I hope Nigerians, and in particular the president, known for his strategic nature, will also see it in that light. Because I tell you, whenever you are challenged, the best of you comes out. Qatar, if you remember, Qatar as a country was challenged by the GCC nations when they experienced their blockade over some, regional issues. But guess what comes out of it at the end? Qatar was completely an importing nation, but today they produce most of the things they use in the country. And if they were not blocked, perhaps they will still be relying on importation from neighboring countries. So I am also bringing it down to us. When you ask if it is a blessing in disguise, 100%. And you know what? Today we have 5 states in Nigeria, Jumoke, 5 states, namely Adamawa State in the northeast, Katsina State in the northwest, Ondo State, Ekiti State, and Ogun State in the southwest that are heavily endowed with the deposit of kaolin, which is a typical, resource, raw material for pharmaceutical companies in billions of deposit. And these are mineral resources that the whole world is looking for. I expect to see that in the coming months, the president, should open up and bring in investors to utilize this. Because we don't utilize the resources we have in our country. That is why we are always challenged to an extent, insulted in the country by even countries that should not be paired with us at any given stage. But because we gave up and we are continuously relying on aids as a country, and that is not good. Yes, it's a hard living tax because already there is so much pressure in our economy. The president is doing his best because, as you can see today, the dollar is coming down, food items, the prices are getting reduced in the market, yet we want to see it sustain and if possible also come down. But however, with the advent of these Trump's, intention to withdraw from these aids, he has every right to do it as a president because his policy has always been America first. And I also want our president to embrace the attitude of Nigeria first and first by every means necessary. That means he will begin to open up our investment opportunities with respect to these resources so that we should start seeing in his administration companies are coming down to Nigeria to make use of these resources in the line of pharmaceuticals, in the line of, like I said, the lithium arrangement, in so many things, refineries for gold and whatever, because there is no state, Jumoke, there is no state that does not have mineral resources adequate enough to take care of Nigeria. And the president should really focus on opening up this economy because it will not only, if only other presidents have done so much from 1961 when we started receiving aid from USAID. By now, maybe Nigeria will also be looking at Federal Republic of Nigeria aids for African countries' development. But do we have anything like that? No. Rather, we are also competing with those African countries in taking aids from the same USAID 63 years later, which is a big insult to us, especially in our generation, that we have a lot to contend with. So I hope that the president will look at it in that light, and we pray that God will continue to give him the necessary energy and foresight, to push through this so that Nigeria will go out of this shame, because it's a shame, Jumoke, on a global stage that whenever there has to be, there is an issue like this, we begin to panic because we are not prepared as a country. We are not prepared. Absolutely,
absolutely. Before I take you up on other issues, does it scare you or bother you when you hear people say there is nothing Nigeria can do if the USAID Boko Haram allegations are proven? And really, you're a security consultant, is there nothing we can do?
There is, of course there is. There is. We are one of the biggest global markets. Our number is a blessing, and God willing, it will continue to be a blessing. And if strategically placed in the right position at regional stage, intercontinental stage and global stage, it will continue to be a blessing. There is no way we cannot hold the United States accountable if this thing will be proven at the end. Why? Because of our number. They looked back at us for so many things, especially for their markets. And there is no way they will want to tamper with this relationship. America will not forfeit her relationship with Nigeria. More so, we are yet to understand if these things are they being orchestrated by what Elon Musk termed as far-left Marxists, because this is how he defined it. He said he is sure people who have taken over USAID and are using it for these dangerous activities, he described them as far-left Marxists who hate America. And if that is the case, are they people that the president of America will fight to save his relationship with the African giants like Nigeria? If yes, it means we are going to be on the same page to save this relationship, and we hope to see that the American government will also punish these perpetrators, while we are also identifying their core conspirators in Nigeria and also deal with them accordingly. And we really want to see the president, as soon as these people are identified, they should not only be shamed, but hold accountable to the latter. And whatever they have in their disposal should be recovered and given back to Nigeria in an effort to compensate for the damages they have meted over the years. I'm telling you, we can hold America accountable, and I am very sure the president will do that with the help of, with the support of other past presidents who have good relationship with America. They will work together to resolve this, but certainly perpetrators will be brought to book in both the two countries, America and Nigeria.
All right, Engineer Nuruddin, let's move on to other matters, which is the gathering of Nigerian past and present leaders witnessing the confession or revelation of General Ibrahim Babangida, also with history-making speeches. But must remind ourselves about the annulment of that election, which threw the entire nation into one of the worst political crises, causing untold hardships across the nation and claiming the lives of the major political actors at that time. What does this confession mean to you? Would you say better late than never? Was it really a revelation?
With due respect to General Babangida, yes, he is a father figure. He was head of state at the time, and every head of state deserved to be respected. And he played his part. Has he done only within his powers what he can do, or he choose to do what he wants to do? And this is between him and Nigerians and God. But to answer your question, Jumoke, I will tell you, I don't see that as necessary, because he ended up taking responsibility at the same time, apportioning blames, and which is not necessary. As a leader that he is portrayed, if he chooses to take responsibility, taking that responsibility and allowing Nigerians to decide whether they should forgive him or not is where he should stop. But again, explaining the details on how it happened and who is responsible, I don't think is necessary. More so, the guy is not alive to protect himself. General Abacha is dead. General Abacha is dead, but I'm sure, just like what I have seen today, a famous human rights activist, the former president of the human rights UNHCR, I think, Professor Chidi Odinkalu, said it's unnecessary, and truly is unnecessary. You don't just come and tell people you regret what has happened under your watch, but again, you rub it on a dead person in his grave. How does he defend himself? How do you expect him to defend himself?
Have you considered whether or not that was his truth? That was him speaking his truth.
But if he is speaking his truth, maybe he should also be asked, would he have made the same statement if General Abacha is alive? It's not about saying the truth. You also look at it's not about making your statement and calling it truth. You look at the extent to which it will go, looking at you as a figure. Because today, me and you, we have seen what has been happening to the Abacha family. Every now and then, monies return from the foreign countries in the name of Abacha loot. Yes, we have his former chief security officer and the president of Major Hamza Al-Mustafa, who has always tried his possible best to defend that was not stolen. It was an arrangement between the president, head of state as at the time, with those countries, in an effort of sovereign guarantee to keep those funds when Nigeria needed the most. But again, he has a lot to prove, and to prove to Nigerians that what he is saying is the truth. But what happened during the Babangida? Okay, I give you an example. I read a small article of, written by, in an interview by the former managing director of the Point Blank News in America to one of the famous Nigerians, journalists, Dr. Fawemi Balogun, and he has a lot to say about this thing. He said, did Babangida actually annulled June 12th, because what were the three? He gave reasons why he annulled it. He did it because he didn't want to go. He did it because of the deep animosity between him and Abiola. Yes, there are a lot of these things, but like I always tell people within my knowledge, Babangida is a subject in Nigeria. How you choose to discuss him is your choice. Because if you want to discuss Babangida in his Maradonic nature, you have a lot to write and hear. If you choose to discuss him as somebody who was influenced so many figures in terms of capacity development. You have a lot to write. If you choose to look at him as a charismatic leader that many defined him, you have a lot to see. So Babangida as a person, and just like every other leader, has a lot, but he has done so much in the country, ruled for 8 years as a military head of state, you know, and as he was referred to by his peers as head boy, he has done what he can do for the country. But where I differ with him, and it's because at this point in time in the country, Jumoke, we are healing wounds, and this is what we need for the country to move forward, so that we look forward to doing so many things that will better, you know, the country in terms of development and guarantee the future of our children.
All right.
But coming
but
to
again,
begin to trace back,
can you hold on? Does this revelation, you know, finally put to rest the controversy over who won that election? And what difference does it make that IBB himself publicly said this to the entire nation?
Who won the election has already been defined by the past administration, because he was honored in his grave. But was that honor enough to him? No. Because for me, honoring me when I'm dead does not make much sense to me. Yes, it provides reliefs for the family and, you know, people who have fought for democracy. It's like a relief, but the man at the center, has he been properly compensated? No, you cannot compensate the death. This is one side. On the other side, if you want to go into the nitty-gritty of what happened in the democracy, even as at the time when Abiola won election, you look at it, because there are different documents with different narration on who won and how he won the election, what really happened. So is this saving our democracy? What Babangida said, has it really put the argument of annulling June 12 to rest? For me, no, it has just opened another canker, because we'll get to see a lot of counter narration about his autobiography, believe you me, Olajumoke, in the coming days, because people who are loyalists to General Abacha will begin to put their own record straight on the paper and also say, that did not happen, this did not happen. You know, so sometimes it's not necessary for us as a country to do all this, even though history should actually be put down for reference purposes. But again, not in this light. This is my take.
All right. You know, he also said the decision was taken in the interest of Nigeria so as to avoid civil war if Abiola became president. Can you relate with that?
No, because I have read other documents, you know, which were completely contrary to what General Babangida said. Completely contrary. And in that case, in those documents, it was clearly mentioned that he annulled June 12 because he wanted to pay back to what Abiola did to him, you know, and if he is saying giving him will bring about civil what do you call it, crisis in the country, I don't think that is true, because Abiola was loved in every corner of Nigeria. He has extended his hand because he was a generous person in every corner of Nigeria. But the only question I have seen so far from my research, Olajumoke, is the primary election that gave Abiola the ticket of the SDP, you know, was completely rigged, and delegates were induced. And if you go through those documents and look at it critically, you will see, yes, the primary elections were not free and fair, but the final election was free and fair because people voted Abiola across board in the country, he won in most of the states. That is why he is declared winner. So now, should we choose to look at the first stage, which was the primary election that gave him the ticket, or we look at the final election where he was elected by all Nigerians because they felt he is the right person, or we put the two together? And if that is the case, is that the reason why till date our democracy is not really on his feet? Because over the years, you know, we always put the interest of individuals first before the country. And this has been hitting on the country and, you know, keeping us backward or stagnant. You know, so you have a lot to look at when it comes to this. And for me, I see it that, yes, Abiola has been loved by, you know, many Nigerians. He was voted. It was the most credible election. He died. He could not, you know, enjoy the mandate given to him by Nigerians. But President Buhari chose. That was one thing he did that I so much like. Right. He said, instead of us to be looking at 29 May, I choose to make it 12 June because this was the only time and the first time Nigerians enjoyed, free
absolutely,
and fair
Engineer
and credible
Nuruddin.
elections.
And
so
interestingly or not, some activists are now demanding for a criminal investigation into IBB's administration. I wonder what you make of this.
I don't think it has any consequence, Olajumoke. IBB is 82. General Babangida is 82. Yes, death is not expected of age, but by age, you can see that people go closer to their grave. So if you want to investigate, aim at doing what? To do what with it? Is it to hold Babangida responsible? To what extent? The only thing I said, and I think I would stand on this, is General Babangida should have taken responsibility. Mind you, Olajumoke, the past president, President Buhari, asked for forgiveness when he was leaving office. Without mentioning details of what he has done that was wrong. So if IBB feels at his age, he should reconcile with Nigerians and go with peace to his grave. That is essential. That is a worthy course to take, and Nigerians will applaud him for doing that.
So
many
do you
will forgive him, maybe many will choose not to.
So do you think a direct apology is necessary? Do you think a direct apology is necessary at this time, or this confession or revelation, as it were translated, automatically means an apology?
Yes, as a leader, when you are in any leadership position, sometimes in the course of doing your things, you get to offend a lot of people. And sometimes you go and your result comes out below expectation. And sometimes you do things that, for example, a lot of things that happened from 1999. Now, if this investigation of USAID, let me just deviate a little with you. If this investigation of USAID has something to do with leadership of our Nigerian people as at the time in all the political, dispensation, starting from the second generation, the third generation, and even with the first generation, because mind you, USAID came in the first generation. Now, if the investigation has anything to do with most of the leaders as at the time, what do we expect to see this government do with them, whether they are dead or alive? Now, if you choose to investigate General Babangida because of the confession he has made, or because of a lot of things that Nigerians have about his era, 8 years rule of Nigerian, as a country, what at the end, we ask ourselves, what is the end game? What do we stand to achieve? Is it to take General Babangida to prison at the age of 82? Is it to confiscate his assets and give it back to the Nigerian? What do we stand to do with it? And if that is the case, what happened to other presidents? Because we get to see a lot of things. Look at the Dasuki Gate in Goodluck Jonathan's time. Look at the issues we have, many like the MFLS issue in President Buhari's time. And so you begin to mention a lot of these things attached to each president. So if you want to start investigating, are you now going to investigate all our head of state from 1960 to date?
All right then.
And if that is the case, what do you want to achieve? So I don't think investigating him is necessary, but him dropping names at the age of 82 and making matters difficult for those families because they are not alive, to defend themselves is not necessary. He should have just apologized and allow Nigerians to forgive him or not, and the remaining is between him and God.
Right. Engineer Nuruddin, so listening to, all the history-making speeches from current and past leaders. For instance, we heard former Vice President Yemi Osinbajo describe him as somebody who was tormented to celebrate his tormentor. How do you define the way we deal with memory and history in Nigeria?
Personally, Olajumoke, I can't hold our leaders accountable as an individual. But if you ask me on a general assessment, and with all sincerity of purpose, am I really happy with all of them? I will tell you, if it is a score of 1 to 10, they all have a fail mark, mark. Their assessment with me is fail. And it's because we don't have the attitude of looking at each other and telling each other the truth. Now, I tell you, General Chris Ali, I don't know if you know him. He was Chief of Army Staff under General Abacha. He wrote a book, the Federal Republic of the Nigerian Army, and he called it The Siege of a Nation. In that book, Chris Ali asserted his opinion completely about the Nigerian military. And precisely, he was particular about General Babangida and General Abacha. And he said this, that if only the 8 years of Babangida and the 6 years of Abacha will be taken out in our 64 years from independence, he thinks that Nigeria would have been a better country. Now, you have a lot to argue about this, depending on how you are looking at these individuals. So if you bring, okay, for example, General Gawan said so many good things about him yesterday, but did you listen to what President Olusegun Obasanjo said? He said, be rest assured Nigerians will scrutinize your autobiography. Why did he say that? Why, if there was nothing to scrutinize, why will he mention scrutiny? You understand? So at this point, they all have a lot to answer. It's left to Nigerians to say, okay, you have done this, is the worst thing that has happened to us, but there's nothing we can do to you, but we want to forge ahead. We have drawn the line. And that was what I expected the former president to have done to make things easier for his successor, because he came in with a lot of promises. He said he will fix the dollar. He said he would fix the refineries. Yes, he has tried. He has fixed. We can see now the Port Harcourt refinery is working, the Warri refinery and the Kaduna refinery. This government will also help in make, a lot of these things. But above all, most of the things he has said, has he done them? So if successive governments have not done much, their successors will find it difficult to keep up with their promises for
I hear you, Engineer
Nuruddin. It's not easy.
But before I let you go tonight, what message or warning does this pose to current politicians, especially young politicians who are very passionate about politics, considering how the 2023 elections went? Because at the end of the day, these people, at the end of the day, always find a way to sit together and mend fences. What are the warnings for young politicians?
The warning for young politicians is that we should look out for the country. We should look out for this country if we truly want it to survive, not just for us, but for Nigerians that are not yet born. Because what I have seen in our leadership from 1960 to date is leaders always negotiate for themselves and not the country. And it is the reason why we have the country in this quagmire. And that is why I was telling you since that, assuming every leader we had on board have done his very best for the country, as against individuals that he choose, to enrich instead of institutions. Today, we will be talking about very little, but just to make things better and upgrade. But you can imagine, as rich as we are as a nation, as populous as we are as a nation, all these things by indices are supposed to be, wealth for the country. But look at where we are. Ranked one of the corrupt countries in the world, ranked one of the poorest despite the resources. And it's just, sometimes you'll be wondering, how is our creation out of mistake, Olajumoke? But we just have to agree as Nigerians. And we train people, they run and leave the country. Because there is nothing good for them to look at in the country. And the youths, we should look out for this country instead of ourselves. All right. We should do away with politics of inducement and focus on building Nigeria to make it viable for every Nigerian, irrespective of culture, religion, ethnicity, or whatever divide that we seem to have put on the way that is hindering this country from development.
Right. I guess that's a fine place to leave the conversation tonight. Thank you so much for joining us on Politics Tonight. Engineer Nuruddin Hamayeru, retired naval officer, policy analyst and security consultant. Thank you so much for your insights. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Olajumoke, for having me.
Thank you very much for watching, everyone. That marks the end of today's episode of Politics Tonight. But you can watch the repeat broadcast of this episode at midnight. Get in touch with us on our social media handles, Facebook, Instagram, and X at TVC News NG, and at Olajumoke using the hashtag Politics Tonight. We're also on YouTube at youtube.com